Alrighty, chat, let's get started. Welcome to another Healthy Gamer GG stream. Just a reminder that although I'm a psychiatrist, nothing we discuss on stream today is intended to be taken as medical advice. Everything is for educational or entertainment purposes only. If y'all have a concern or question, please go see a licensed professional. Wow, this is weird. Like, my hair is doing crazy things today. Whatever. Yeah, so go see a licensed professional if y'all need help. Yeah, so today, chat, we are going to, oh, I forgot to start streaming on Twitch. Today, we're going to talk about modern dating advice. And this is going to be a mess because I don't know anything about modern dating. So then the question becomes, okay, if I don't know anything about modern dating, how on earth am I supposed to help y'all with modern dating advice? Well, we will figure it out, chat. We'll sort it out, all right? We will figure it out. Hold on. Here we go. Now I'm live. There we go. All right. Yeah, so today we're going to be looking at some, like, people's takes on dating advice. And, you know, I feel actually pretty good about the science. So, like, I've been reading studies. You know, if y'all caught us on Wednesday, we were talking about being bald. And, like, dating is another one of these things that because I have such a vacuum of personal experience in the modern dating world, I try to compensate by reading lots and lots and lots of science. And I'm confident. So, like, before I used to think, like, oh, like, what do I know, right? Because personal experience is the foundation of all knowledge. But actually, I feel, like, pretty good about it now. I think I've sort of figured some things out. And so I think those will come up today. I've helped enough people sort through the modern dating world. And yeah, like, I think it's going to be good. Like, I think we're going to, like, I think I can help. Which, you know, before I wasn't so sure about. But, like, now there have been enough people who've mentioned stuff on stream. There have been enough people who post stuff. There are enough people who talk about it on Discord. There's enough stuff out there. And I've worked with enough people who have successfully entered relationships, starting from being a very successful content creator to being like a doomer. And I've seen enough of it. So I think I've got an idea. Of course, your mileage may vary, and that's okay, right? So we gotta figure it out. Before we dive into that, though, I want to tell you also every Mental Health Awareness Month, this is kind of like our biggest month of the year. We put in the most effort. And so this year we have a awesome community challenge, which is Make It May. So I wanted to, I don't even know what this is. Oh my God. This is so cool though. So I want to show y'all what we're doing in Make It May. So hold on a second. Let me go here. Let's see if, yes. Okay. So this is what we're doing in Make It May. So we're going to trick y'all into improving your lives. That's what we're going to do here today. So I want to just show y'all, okay. This is our Make It May plan. So this is a community event where there's 4 weeks. Week 1 is make a plan. Week 2 is make connections. Week 3 is make your mark. And week 4 is make a difference. So on week 1, people in the community, we're going to help you create concrete plans, goal setting, and work on time management. Week 2 is going to be building healthy relationships, communities, and networks. Week 3 is going to be using your creative skills and self-expression to enhance your mental health journey. And week 4 is focusing on skills and using skills and passions to make positive, actual changes in the lives of others. So as you participate, you can participate on Discord. It looks like we're at 60,000 points already. So we have various goals and stretch goals. So I will do a pickup artist review at 1 million. So I'm asking y'all, chat, please get us to 1 million because I can't wait to do this. Because when I listen to pickup artists, boy, do I want to tear them a new asshole with just how terribly wrong they are. And I guess if we get to 1.25, y'all will hear Kruthi's commentary as well. Who knows? And then we'll have a special guest if we hit 1.5. And there's a performance review 750K. We don't need to do that one, chat. We don't have to do that. So people may be wondering, how the hell does this actually work? And that's what I want to show y'all. This is actually amazing. So people in our community are putting their lives together. Okay, so I don't know if y'all can see this, but this is what we're doing. We're helping people operationalize and accomplish goals. So grow martial arts dojo to 20 students. Starting point, 12 regular students required. Maintain students. Maintain energy and satisfaction. Run beginner courses of 15 people. Part 1, growth. Select beginner course dates, right? So it gets broken down and people are like fucking doing it. Advertise on Facebook, Instagram, physically, in person. Respond to correspondence within 2 days. Repeat steps 1 to 5 in May, August, December, and April. Do my own practice 4 times a week. Review what was class like. Repeat steps 2 to 3. Have a photo shoot twice. Like, this is operationalizing. Like, this is like, I'm going to grow a martial arts dojo to 20 students. And it's going to be done. We're going to do it. There's other cool stuff too. So I can't eat chili sauce. Someone made a vegan pasta. Like, that's pretty cool. Put phone away, 1 minute. Air out room, 15 minutes, stretch, meditate, skincare. So you can make it your own, okay? Y'all can do it however you need to do it. So we're going to show y'all a couple of others. Here's another one. So fill out a mental health difficulty management plan. So like loneliness and stress, here are the warning signs. Internal coping strategies. Cooking to eat a nice meal, people in social settings that provide distraction, people professionals, and crisis hotlines. I know this is going to be hard to read, so I'm reading it out. Things I want to remember that tends to make me feel better. Creativity is awesome. There are amazing people out there that are selfless and give me hope. So this is awesome. Like, this is like, I don't know if y'all kind of get this. But see, the problem is that, like, we have problems in life. And we don't know how to fix them. And the reason we don't know how to fix them is if you've been playing video games, there's a part of your brain that has atrophied. And that is the part of your brain that deals with something called abstract problem solving. So what we know is that if you look at gamers, they struggle with specifically something called abstract problem solving, which is the ability to take an abstract task, like put your life together, and break it down into steps. So if I ask a gamer, how do you put your life together? They're like, I need to put my life together. And I'm like, okay, cool. How do you do that? They're like, I don't know. Cool thing is that gamers are better at close-ended problem solving. This is what games teach us to do, because the games give us the rules. They give us the enemy. They give us the stats. They give us the options. They give us the strategies. We evolve our own meta as long as everything else is fixed. So what we see is that gamers are actually really good. The U.S. Department of Defense did a study in 2015 that found that gamers have a 20% higher fluid IQ, which is a problem-solving IQ. If they're given a set of pieces, they can put together the puzzle. But what we suck at is abstract problem solving. So what we are trying to do for y'all with Make It is we are taking the abstract part and we are making it concrete. We are taking this negative 20% buff or negative 50% buff, and we are translating it into a plus 20% buff. We are giving you the structure to succeed. We're doing our best. And it's working. Like, we've been doing this for 2 days, chat. 2 days. This is May 3rd. This started 2 days ago. And this is where people are. We'll show y'all one more. This is crazy, dude. Hold on. Where is it? Where's the digital organizing? Right? So, hold on. Damn it. There was one that I saw that was so cool. Is it that one? Hold on. I want to find it. There's one I want to show y'all because it's so cool. It's like, this makes me feel like I should do this. Chat. Yes, here it is. Okay. So we're going to show y'all a couple more, okay? So people are doing things like making vision boards. But before we get to that, like, this is cool. I don't know if you guys can see this. Complete a digital organizer. You see this fucking desktop, chat? And then we get to here. And we get to here, and we get to here. This is beautiful. This is gorgeous. Just clean things up. Dopamine detox. No technology until finishing breakfast. 5 minutes of yoga. Read a book instead of watching YouTube. Rest every 2 hours of studying, mostly stretching and drinking water. No phone. Put together your life, chat. People are making calendars, vision boards, food. You know, making mission statements. We're doing it, chat. Mental health difficulty plan done. So here's the thing. We talk about these community events. Like, oh my God, get points. Like, yeah, you should do all that stuff. Get the points. But the people who participate are the ones that do well. You get out what you put in plus 20%. We are amplifying your effort. 50% more. Right? So y'all got to participate in order to be helped. So the challenge with the HG community is Dr. K comes here and I tell y'all, hey, this is how this thing works. Smoothie. So good. This is how this thing works. We understand this principle, understand the neuroscience, understand the spirituality, but at some point y'all got to do something, chat. Y'all got to get into it. Okay? People have worked really hard here at HG, like we build this stuff, okay? And then do something about it. All right? We good? Okay? And like, let's hit 1 million because, let's see, day 2 is 60,000. So 30 days is going to be what? 180,000. 1.8 million. Okay, good. Or it's 2 days. So that's 30,000. No, that's not going to be enough. Right? It's going to be 900,000. So we need to kick it up a bit to get 1 million points. And then I shall review the dating advice. Okay. So today, not to review the dating advice, to review the fucking, what are they called? The pickup artists. Give me a chance, chat. Let me do it. Put me in, coach. Put me in. Okay. So, let me just make sure that this is not going to, like, break everyone's ears. So now we are going to watch the TikTok. You ready? TikTok. All right. Let's go.
No hose. This video is for you.
Okay. That's too loud, buddy. You comment, bro.
In the men's space, they talk about looks, money, and status. They say if you have all 3 of those on a decent level, women should be coming into your life. This is where I have a slight pushback. There are plenty of men out there who make over 6 figures, are in decent shape, yet their DMs, their Hinge matches, their freaking iMessages are all dry. Then they get mad at the world. They're like, yo, I got my money up. I got some decent looks. I got some status for my job. I'm an engineer. Where the hoes? It's because they didn't talk about this part. Effort, as you can see. Just how you went after looks, money, and status, you now have to put that effort into dating and obtaining girls. Number 1, going out twice a week. You can go out just once, but if you just sit in the house and just wait on matches, you're stupid. You have to be able to socialize, meet a girl out in public, talk to her, get to know her. If you don't have that skill, it's gonna be a lot harder for you. Killer
How do you get the skill?
Dating app pictures. A lot of you guys' photos are really bad, and I get it. Most men don't take very good pictures of themselves, but this is huge if you're going to be successful online. Number 3, Riz, or just being able to talk to girls with some charisma. If you have looks, money, and status, and then a girl comes up and starts talking to you, and you're just like, hey, do you like breadsticks? Oh, me too. You're going to dry her up so quick, and she's going to move on to the next guy. Okay, you're going out. You got some good pictures. You have good riz. This is what's going to maintain her. There's going to be a broke dude tonight with decent looks that's going to get laid. That girl's going to realize, yo, this guy's a bum, doesn't do much for work, but he got laid. But if she goes back home with you and she sees your nice place, sees your nice car, knows you have a good job, that's when you start to maintain them. Make sure you hit the follow for more content. Let's go, boys.
Alrighty. So, This is the first one. All right. So the first thing that we got to say is that we got to remember that we're going to be charitable to these people because this is TikTok, which means it's short form, which means that there isn't enough time for nuance and whatnot, right? So this is kind of like, it's really easy to respond negatively to a TikTok. So my apologies to all these creators. I actually really appreciate all the content that y'all make. I think it has value for sure. And this is sort of what I love and hate about this perspective. So what I love about this is, first of all, this guy is like, it is not sufficient to do these three things. And I love this perspective. So there's an idea, which I don't know why this gets propagated. I have some thoughts about this, but there's this idea that if you do X, Y, and Z, you will be able to get into a relationship. And I think that these people, part of the reason that they suggest that you need money, you need height, you need to be sexy, you need to be capable, you need money, you need status, like all these like alphas, right? So I think that it's a really great perspective from a business standpoint, because what you're asking people to do is something that is so difficult, right? So I don't know if y'all have seen some of these like React videos where people ask people like, what percentage of men do you think are over 6 feet, make $100,000 a year, and like don't have kids or something like that? And it's like an incredibly small percentage of people meet these expectations that everyone thinks you have to meet. And that's why it works, right? So like if I tell y'all, hey, at the top of Mount Everest, there is an enlightened goat that can time travel and has the voice of Jean-Luc Picard. And I'm like, y'all should, like, it's there. You just have to go up there and you'll see it. So if I set a goal that is so insurmountable that no one can ever achieve it, people can continue believing that the Jean-Luc Picard goat is on top of Mount Everest. You just need to go and you'll find it, okay? So it's like, this is what people do. They say, like, you need to achieve A, B, or C, and then you will be in a relationship. So there's another big bias. So this happens more commonly for men than women. Like, so if we look at dating advice, at least I see it more. Maybe it's an algorithm thing. So why is that? That's because if we look at the way that men support each other, there's research on this. There are two kinds of support. One is something called instrumental support, and the second is something called emotional support. Instrumental support is, if you have a problem, here are the ways to fix the problem. We as men are problem solvers. So what we do is, like, we look at the world and we see that there's this 1% of men who are successful, and we think if we duplicate that success, that's the way to be successful. We don't know how to offer emotional support. And oftentimes what men and people need in the dating world today is emotional support, not instrumental support. So why is that? So let me take a step back. So let's talk about this, right? So people say if you achieve A, B, or C, then you will, A, B, and C, then you will be successful. So this is the way that men think. If there is a problem, here are the ways to solve it. But this is not statistically correct, because the vast majority of people, 99% of people, maybe that's not precisely true, but I want to say upwards of 90% of people in relationships are not going to meet those criteria, right? Like, all you have to do is, like, go to a grocery store or go to a playground, and you'll see that, like, not everyone is 6 foot, makes $100,000 a year, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's, like, lots of people in the majority of people are in successful relationships and don't do that kind of thing. Don't meet those requirements. Okay, so it's like, it's weird, but, like, this is the crazy thing, right? So if you look at people giving dating advice, you should get dating advice from, like, 40-year-old married men who have been married for a decade. That's where you should get your relationship advice. All these people who are giving dating advice, like, I think most of them are single. Like, they don't have relationships, or maybe they do. I don't know. They don't talk about their relationships, right? They talk about how you can get into your relationship. They're like, you should do these things, and then you can get girls to date you. Fair enough. Okay. So let's take a step back and recognize that this is a very hard standard to achieve. I think there's a reason why everyone kind of gets into it, because we all idealize these people. We envy these people. So if we psychologically envy someone, we think, okay, if I'm like this person, then my life will be easy. So what I really like about what this person says is that that's insufficient, which is absolutely true. So there's this idea that if you check certain boxes, a relationship will poof, show up like a genie in a bottle. Doesn't work like that. Why? And this is where we get to the problem. Because people are humans. Women are people. They're individual humans. And there isn't a formula to get an individual person to like you. There are statistical probabilities, fair enough, right? They're like statistical things where the more money you make, the more likely you are to end up in a relationship. The more handsome you are, the more likely you are to end up in a relationship. Fair enough. There may be certain variables that correlate with success. But the key thing to understand is just because a variable tightly correlates with success doesn't mean that you cannot achieve success without that variable, right? So like, so people who are financially successful or let's say some people who are financially secure correlates with how much money your parents had. Fair enough. That is a fair correlation to make. But that does not mean that deterministically you need rich parents to be financially secure. Do y'all understand like the dichotomy there? So this is where like a lot of people who are giving dating advice, I don't think understand statistics. I don't know if they look at statistics. Like, I don't know, right? I don't know. But like y'all got to think statistically. Like if you want to understand the world, don't think anecdotally, think statistically. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is this person says this is insufficient. And that's correct. And I see this all the time, especially in med school and with my friends who are doctors. Everyone says, oh, like girls want to date doctors. Oh, yeah. And so some guy goes to med school and he's like, I'm a doctor now. Where are the ladies? Why am I still single? Yeah, it's like, so if you ask a girl what her preference is, she may say, yeah, I'd love to date a doctor. But that is not sufficient to achieve an outcome. So if we look at science, we have certain things that are necessary for an outcome and certain things that are sufficient for an outcome. Money, status, and power are not sufficient to find a relationship. And you can go to like an anime convention and you'll see dudes there who are dating people who appear to not have money, power, or status. Right? They're at anime conventions. I'm not saying they're losers. Right? So pay attention to my words. They don't appear to have these three things. So if you look at the vast majority of people who end up in relationships, they're not incredibly powerful, they're not incredibly successful, and they're not incredibly handsome. They are almost by definition averagely successful, averagely attractive, and averagely powerful. Like that's what happens. Like, think about your parents, think about your friends at school, and think about their parents. You don't need to go camping a playground, right? Just think about the people that you grew up with and the people that you know. So this is what I like about what this person says. Is like, it requires effort. Fair enough. Like, this is good. So that is not sufficient. And then he talks about just get Riz. Right? The question is how? And like, it's cool that you're bringing up this point of like effort, and maybe that's why we need to subscribe to this person's channel and he'll tell us how to get Riz and things like that. Like, yeah, I agree. There's effort involved. But he's like, you got to be going out twice a week. Like, I think this is good in some ways, but it's hard. So now let's like tunnel down into, y'all pick one. What do y'all, this guy says that you got to have, let's go back to this thing. Okay, hold on. Defund simping. And hey, if you guys like this stuff, like check out their content, subscribe to them, like that's all great. Like I don't think that's a bad thing. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So what I like about this is that he's good at least like pointing out that there's like additional factors. Okay. So now he says like go out twice a week. So like I think this is good. So let's understand a little bit about so let's like give the dude props for a couple things. One is he points out that you need good pictures, right? Especially if you're using dating apps. So this is a system where people make selections primarily based on appearance. So you should optimize your pictures. Like, this is fantastic advice. I agree completely. So go out twice a week and Riz and maintain. So I also think that this guy points out, like, stumbles on, I think, a very, very important principle, which we need to understand. See, there's a huge flaw in the research around dating. So there's a lot of research that asks men and women, what are your preferences? These are hypotheticals. They're like, what kind of person would you be interested in dating? And then people will say, I want to date someone over 6 feet. I want to date someone who has big boobs. I want to date someone who's very attractive, whatever. This is a very different question from who are you dating and who have you dated. So to understand the big problem is, and we'll see a lot of, like, I see this a lot in like incel or doomer forums where they'll cite these studies that say women prefer this kind of man. These studies have a huge problem. I'll give you all an example. So there's a beautiful study that someone did on focus groups. So for those of y'all that don't know, a focus group is when you get a group of potential customers and you get feedback about a product. And so you ask the focus group people, let's say I'm selling this pen, okay? And so if I'm selling this pen, I'll ask the focus group, hey, like, do you like the pen? Do you think it's good? What do you think about the color? Or, you know, we're going to charge $8.99 for this pen. You know, would you buy this pen? Do you think it's worth $8.99? And people in focus groups will say, yes, we think it's great. It's got this back end over here that comes off. That's fantastic. It's got this front end over here. This is great. It looks really nice. It feels good. It has a nice weight to it. And the focus group people give you feedback. And then they said, do you think this pen is worth $8.99? The focus group people say yes. There's like 12 of them. Like 10 of them say yes. And then these researchers did something beautiful. They said, great, now buy it. Give us $8.99 and you will get a pen. Almost no one bought it. I don't remember the exact number, but it's like 20% or less or something like that. So there is a huge difference. So this experiment showed something very, very important. When you ask human beings a question about what they would do and what they actually do, these are apples and oranges. You actually cannot correlate them, and we have data that shows that they do not correlate. That the hypothetical of who you would date is very different from who you actually date. This is a fundamental weakness in the research. So if you want to understand how to date, like, don't survey people because it doesn't translate. Case in point, I had one rule in my dating life. I'm not going to date an Indian girl. And if you're an Indian boy, you know why. And my wife had one rule in dating. She is not going to date an Indian boy. And if you are an Indian girl, you know why. Right? And even if you're of some other ethnicity, you may be of an ethnicity where you know exactly what I'm talking about. Just anyone except for the same ethnicity as yourself. And look at that. We had these rules. If you ask me questions, in fact, I even said this to my friends when they would try to set me up on dates, or they would ask me what girls I like, or like, hey, you think she's hot? Like, whatever. I was like, yeah, she may be attractive and she may be great, but like, there's no way I'm going to date an Indian girl. No. This was my one rule. And look at who I ended up with. So there's a huge difference between what people say they would do and what they actually do. And so there's a lot of hope for y'all, okay? It's important to understand this. Now, so completely agree that we need killer dating apps, and then maintain. I think this is another really good point to think about. So we also know from the research that there is a big difference between what people find attractive and what allows them to enter a relationship. Initial attraction and value in a relationship are two very, very, very different things. Okay? So the things that lead to an early relationship, the psychological factors, the needs that are met are very different from what lead to a later relationship. And this is why relationships start and end. So I know this sounds kind of weird, but if we really stop and think about it, it is strange that relationships start and end. What changes? Right? So if you're willing to date someone for 1 week, why aren't you willing to be with them for the rest of your life? Like, it's weird, right? Like, what changes in that time? Because something must change. And this is what's beautiful. So if you look at relationships, what tends to happen is you have something like, we all know this, you're in love. And the crazy thing about being in love is like our genes, our gonads are like, we need to procreate. So we're going to go to this part of your brain, which makes good decisions, and we're going to short circuit it because we need to procreate. And if we made calculated decisions, the human race would die out. We need to be able to fall in love. And when you fall in love, I don't know the neuroscience behind this. I looked at it some time ago. I don't think it's really well figured out. But we know that there's all kinds of weird problems with impulsivity. So when we're in love, we make impulsive decisions. We know that the emotional circuitry of our brain is in a war with our frontal lobes and the more calculating parts of our cerebral cortices. So when you get emotional, you make bad decisions. Right? Like the question is why? Why does the human brain make bad decisions when we're emotional? Why wouldn't we want to evolve to always make good decisions? Because if we evolved to always make good decisions, the human race would die out. Making bad decisions is an evolutionary advantage because that's why we end up pregnant. It's a brilliant system, and it requires the short-circuiting of your brain. So why do people date for a year and then break up? Because you were with them for a year. What happened? So what happened is there is a tolerance that builds up to this love. The honeymoon phase ends. And as the honeymoon phase ends, you begin to see all of these problems that were always there. You saw them before, but you ignored them. You ignore them, right? And this guy gives the example of some lady is going home with a broke person today. And then, what is going to keep her around is like the other stuff. And that's, I think, a fair assessment, right? Because we'll do anything stupid for one day. It's as the months go on, when these kind of the honeymoon phase ends, and then like we sort of end up like realizing who this person is, or they're not growing, or we were hoping they would change or whatever. Right? We're growing into different people. Like all of that stuff comes into play, and that's why relationships start and end. So if you want to maintain a relationship, you have to focus on those things. And in my experience, the whole point what makes a successful relationship is not two people, but two evolving people, and two people who evolve in a synchronous manner. So you are going to change over the course of your relationship. Your partner is going to change over the course of the relationship. And hopefully y'all like intertwine with each other. Y'all are kind of like a trellis and a vine, right? Where one of y'all provides some scaffolding, one of y'all provides some support, and you guys kind of like grow together. Like a proper parasitic vine, right? If it's a really good relationship. So the factors to attract someone and the factors to stay in a relationship are two different things. Now, I'm going to just check in with chat. Oh my God, there's so many messages. Holy Jesus. Do people... Oh my God. Okay, slow. Oh my God, I can't tell. Is this just... No, this is constantly. Okay. Okay. Cursed Jesus. Okay. All right. Okay. Slow it down. So you guys, I'm going to read chat. I'm going to try to read chat a little bit better instead of ranting at y'all so I can respond to questions, okay? So now there's like two issues. So now we're going to get to the how, because this guy says Riz. So I think we had a video recently about the science of charisma. Did we have that? Did I make that? Am I just smoking something in my brain? Didn't we break down charisma for... Yeah, okay, charisma isn't what... Yeah, so we have a video from 4 months ago where we talk about what charisma is. So, like, this is a super cool video if y'all haven't checked it out. We actually looked at, like, the science of charisma. So what is charisma? And it's not what people think it is. Okay? So if y'all want to, I won't repeat everything there, but like, so for example, if you look at one example of something that people don't think of as charisma, having a vision for the future is charisma. So if you all like, let's just take this channel, for example, right? So would people describe me as charismatic? Sure. The question is why, right? What makes me or anyone else charismatic? Why is charisma so important for politics? Why is charisma so important for leadership? Why? It's because people want a vision. So in the dating world, if you want to have charisma, you need to have a vision for your life, right? This is who I am. This is where I'm going. You can join me for this journey. And that's like very attractive to people. Like just scientifically, it's attractive. Having a vision for your life. So this is why a lot of people will say in dating, like, work on yourself. And everyone's like, I don't want to work on myself. I want to get laid. What does that mean? So I don't think people understand the science behind it, right? But there are enough people who struggled for a while and then they worked on themselves and they're like, hey, this worked for me. So charisma is a couple of different things. Okay, so like let's talk about charisma for a second. So you guys can watch that video. A vision is literally the science of it correlates. We've asked people like, or there have been research studies on, which leaders are the most charismatic. Or like if you rate the CEO of your company, like what correlates with them being charismatic? It's having a vision. So that's just one example of one of the data points that actually correlates with the charisma. And for the women in our audience and the men in our audience, I would hope, and all the non-binary people, I would hope that that resonates with you, right? That like if you think about someone who's attractive, like they know what they're doing in their life. And so all of us clueless people in life, we like to latch on to people who know what they're doing because we think if we hang out with people who have a fucking clue what they're doing with their life, maybe some of that'll rub off on me. It's very attractive, right? I don't mean sexually. I mean like we gravitate towards people who pretend that they have a clue as to what's going on in life. And they show up on places like the internet, and they offer such expounding advice, citing literature, but never showing y'all a bibliography. And since they seem so confident and have a vision, and they speak with such passion, we start to believe them and we gravitate towards them. And sometimes 4.9 thousand people show up and listen to crazy people like this. What madness is this? Okay, so next up, let's understand a little bit about how to talk to people. Because this person, okay, so let's go through a couple of other points. So here's the big problem with online dating. So if you look at the nature of how human relationships form, there is an organicness to it. So in order for a human relationship to form, there has to be, it can't be like intentionally formed. Like you don't, like it's like today I'm going to barbecue. So I'm going to get everything ready and I'm going to show up and I'm going to start barbecuing and then I'm going to be done barbecuing. That's not how relationships work. You can't show up and say, today you and I are going to start dating. And a month from now, we're going to do this. And 6 months from now, we're going to do this. And a year from now, we're going to get married. And then we're going to have kids. And then we're going to, you can't do that in dating. Some people try. It actually works for some people. And generally speaking, it doesn't work well. Human relationships form organically. They can't be formed with intention from the get-go. Or even if, you can have intention, but that's generally speaking not how they form. So when this person says you should go out 2 times a week, I think about relationships like loot boxes. It's RNG. You have to just open enough chests until you find a relationship. So you want to create opportunities for organic interaction. This is why there's so much emphasis on hobbies and interests. Go somewhere, don't be obsessed with a relationship, and give yourself an opportunity to have a relationship blossom. Okay? And that's just kind of how it works. Because when human beings are under pressure, they don't feel relaxed. Duh. And when we sort of force a relationship, there isn't it runs contrary to the way that our relationships form in our brain. There are some cases that are exact opposites of this. So a good example of this is arranged marriage. So arranged marriage is a situation where you get married and some of my friends' parents met their spouses a week before their wedding. Now, even if you look at those arranged marriages, what we see is a society that offers enough structure and support for the lack of the organic relationship to happen. And then what happens in arranged marriages is the marriage comes first. You're married, but you don't have a relationship with this person. And then over time, an organic relationship forms. And it's kind of weird because even if you look at an arranged marriage, like, it's quite organic. And the reason why is because the decision has been made. There's no choice anymore, right? There's no pressure. The pressure's gone. It's done. You're finished. GG. You're married. Deal with it. And so then an organic relationship starts to form. So if we want relationships form in organic circumstances, and if we want organic circumstances, then we need to just go and put ourselves out there, right? So that means go to places and do things where there are other humans. Now we get to charisma, right? So we have a study, we have a video about what charisma actually is from a scientific perspective. It's very surprising. We talked about that. So now we're going to talk about the more classic charisma. So there are a couple of things that I find are very, very, if we break down the science of how to talk to people and flirting, there are a couple of things that we need to learn. So one, here are the key points. If you struggle with social interaction and you want to get good at it, there are a couple of things to understand. The first is that practice makes perfect. Okay? So the more that you interact with people, the better off you will be. The second thing, I'm going to show you all a study. Oh boy. Okay. Give me a second, chat. Let me find this. Is this the one? Give me a second, chat. Nope, not this one. Hold on. I'm going to need a second, chat. Not this. Not this. Not this. This is the only one that's left. Yes. Hold on. Give me a second, chat. Sorry, I should have pulled this up earlier. I wasn't planning on pulling this up. Here, I can screen share this with y'all as I look through it, so you guys can follow along, at least. Okay, so this is a paper called The Promoting Effect of Mental Health Education on Student Social Adaptability. Let's take a quick look at what leads to social. I'm basically looking for one piece of data in here. I don't think it's got to be this one. Relationship-specific and relationship-independent behavioral adaptivity in affiliation and bonding, a multi-adaptive dynamical systems approach. Yes. Okay. So this is one of those scientific papers that uses such big words that it's not clear whether they're actually bullshitting us or not. So, I love this sentence. We analyze computationally how an interplay of adaptive relation-specific and relation-independent mechanisms occurs within the causal pathways for social interaction. As part of this, obviously, we cover also the context-sensitive control of these types of adaptation, adaptive speeds and strengths of adaptation, which is sometimes termed higher-order adaptation or metaplasticity. Metaplasticity is our word for the day. Here is the key thing that we want to understand, okay? So the outcome of the analysis, forget about this, shows a strong dependence of adaptation on the extent of social interaction. More social interaction leads to more adaptation of the interaction behavior. So this is a very fancy paper that has shit like this. What is this? What? 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 This is the science of behavior and social connection, chat. I don't think these people on TikTok are reading this. Okay? But here's the crazy thing. Let me see if I can find this at the end. Oh, God. Here we go. Okay, I don't know where this is. So we're just going to go back to this sentence. I'll tell y'all what this means. Okay? So this is a paper that's looking at It's a cool paper. So this is what the paper is looking at. So if I take a human being and I have them interact with another human being, do they adapt socially to the person that they're interacting with? And furthermore, how much of the adaptation so let's say like I'm me and I'm interacting with person A. I adapt to person A, but how much does that adaptation help me with person B and person C and person D and person E? So this is a meta level. This is a second order adaptation and social kind of improvement. Okay? Does that kind of make sense? That's what the paper's looking at. Here's what they discovered. The more you socialize, the better you get socially. Right? This is what their answer is. So not only do you get better at dealing with person A, but you also get better at dealing with persons B, C, D, or E. This is like 5-head stuff. But these papers are very important. Okay, I know everyone's like, duh. Yeah, duh. So it's good to know. But there's some nuances to the paper that are good. And sometimes we do studies like this and we discover the opposite. Like that focus group is a good example, where we assume that if you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. But we all fucking know that's not true. Right? So, interact with people twice a week. We need to decrease our social anxiety. Part of the way that we do that, part of the way we get good at dealing with people is just by dealing with people. And this is where a lot of people are like, Dr. K, I don't know how to interact with someone. So now we get to the applicable part of it. You don't need to know how to interact with someone. This is the biggest mistake people make. People who are socially anxious and have an atrophy of social skills because we exist on the internet think that I need to learn how to socialize before I go out. No, you don't. All you need to do is tolerate your feelings of social incompetence. That is the only thing that you need to do. The cool thing is that literally your brain will do the rest. Your brain will do the rest. So our brain is so amazing. It is so neuroplastic. It is an instinct to socialize. Children are never taught how to socialize. There are shortcomings in socialization if you don't have the right social environment, so that's there. But generally speaking, it's not like we have formal classes. We teach kids mathematics. We teach them how to hold objects. We don't formally teach them how to socialize because our brain is wired for it. So everyone thinks I need to figure out socialization. I need to know what the pieces of charisma are so I can start practicing them in private and I can show up rizzed out, whatever. You just need to show up. The brain will take over. The problem is that we have a shortcoming in distress tolerance. We cannot tolerate feeling socially incompetent. That's the problem. So if you just show up and you interact with people, the more you interact with people, the more that your brain will de-rust. Okay? That's number one. So we're going to give you all a couple of tips about how to interact with people and specifically like what does that mean to be rizzed. So one is I do think it's important to have some vision of your life, right? Have a vision of yourself and a vision of your life. This people will be attracted to, number one. Second thing is I think a lot of people need to get better at ambiguity. So flirtation is about ambiguity. Okay? So like the whole point, the thing that's exciting about flirtation is no one knows what you mean. You know? Like I'm trying to think of a good example, but like if we look at flirtation, it's like, hey, are you the guy that's going to pump my tires? Are you here to pump my tires? Oh yeah, I'm here to pump your tires. Right? You can say whatever the fuck you want. It doesn't matter. So it's like some amount of me, like I can't come up with this is a fail on my part because I was like that's where it is. Like it's all about ambiguity. But the problem is that when we're socially anxious, we become uncomfortable with ambiguity because we don't know, does this person like me or not like me? When we're socially anxious, ambiguity gets turned into negative. So we can't float in the ambiguous space. And this is why like everyone wants to have a DTR conversation, define the relationship. What is this? Is this love? Is this marriage? Where are we going? And the only reason you have that, in order to get to that define the relationship conversation, there needs to be a hell of a lot of ambiguity before. I don't know what this is. Exactly. That is the foundation of Riz, is ambiguity in a relationship. Now, remember, that's phase one, where this is like attracting someone. Then you have to define the relationship. You have to survive phase two. It's like these bosses where it's like phase 1 is like this move set. And you're like, I just figured this out. I just figured out how to attract people. And suddenly the boss is like, ha ha ha, you thought I was a snail? Turns out I'm a dragon. And now I'm flying and breathing fire at you. And you're like, I wasn't prepared for this. This is why you end up with people who can date very easily, but can't settle down. I have a fear, and we just call it fear of commitment. It's not fear of commitment. This is a phase change for a boss. And you learned this one script, you don't realize that there's a whole second script. And then they break up with this person, things fall apart, and they date someone new. So it's like, okay, I wiped on phase number 2, so let me just go back and do phase number 1 again. Let me do phase number 1 again. Let me do phase number 1 again. Let me do phase number 1 again. And this is what happens in dating. Some people are really good at getting dates and really bad at settling down. Especially the alphas. Right? And then some people are actually pretty good at phase 2. And they're like, I'm a loving, caring person, but you don't know how to deal with phase 1. Paradoxically, you can do the hard stuff, but it's the phase 1, it's fighting the snail. And it's like, yeah, I don't know, like my monitor's busted and the snail leaves this like poison trail and I don't know how to avoid the poison. You know, I auto attack him and it bounces off and I get stunned because it has this snail shell, like whatever. So these are 2 separate phases. Okay. Phase 1 is a lot about ambiguity. Phase 2 is sure when he says maintenance, this is about shared goals, all that kind of stuff. So if you guys want to like learn how to have Riz, like learn how to be ambiguous, have a vision for your life, that speaks to confidence. The next thing that's really important is like, this one's kind of tricky. Don't have a whole lot of expectations. So this is like sort of a mixed bag. Actually, I'm going to stop that. We're going to stop there. We're going to just move on to the next thing. I feel like I've ranted enough. So when someone says, damn, I'm not good at either, right? So that's where like that could be true. I'm not disagreeing with you. But I also think that like many people who I know, the majority of people who I know underestimate how bad they are at things. So if we look at like Dunning-Krueger, right? So remember, Dunning-Krueger is this idea that the worse you are at something, the poorer judge you are, which makes sense. So like we'll have all these like, you ask like dudes, if you were in a fight with a crocodile, like who would win? Could you take on a silverback gorilla? Could you take on a grizzly bear? And you'll have dudes be like, yeah, like I'm stronger than the grizzly bear, blah, 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 blah. Okay? And so people do this, right? And then there's also like, take your favorite video game with online multiplayer and people telling you that you're bad and you need to uninstall. Dunning-Krueger. So the other really interesting thing is that Dunning-Krueger applies to negativity as well. This is what a lot of people don't realize. Everyone thinks that Dunning-Krueger means that I overestimate my skill. It just means that the poorer you understand something, the more you misestimate your skill. Which direction you estimate on depends on your ego. So a lot of people say, I am bad at ... That is such a definitive statement. That comes from you. I don't know if it comes from your circumstances. And then people will say, but Dr. K, I have all of this evidence. And that's where it's like, I hate to break it to you, but if you have one traumatic experience, your brain will go back and rewrite all of your previous experiences to be worse. This is crazy. People don't know this. That your brain goes back and retcons your life all the time. The more trauma you experience, the more retconned your life becomes. And then people look back and they say, this is my life. No, it isn't. And now in the world that we live in, we're not allowed to say that. We're not allowed to say, if you feel this way, you're wrong. Your feelings are valid, but your interpretation of reality is not. There's like studies on this stuff, okay? Traumatic effects on memory. I forget who's, there's a great researcher who talks a lot about this, but I'm blanking on their name. Okay? So this is where like, and they all are saying like, okay, but then what do I do? Good question. I'm like, you're wrong at this, chat. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're bad. You're bad. You're wrong at this. You're wrong at this. You don't understand this. Yeah. There's Dr. K treating you like crap. Take a deep breath. Take a step back. Here's what y'all need to do. First of all, recognize that you are a human being. You are adaptable. You are neuroplastic. Your past does not determine your future. You can change. That's the main takeaway. Give it a shot. Recognize it's going to be tough. Don't give up. Okay? All right, let's look at the next one. All right. Yes, you're plastic. Not like the substance, like the brain. All right. Let's do this one.
Met in real life and dated who I know I would have swiped left on and said no to on a dating app. Let's talk about it. This is why I think it's really important if you're looking to go on more dates, if you're looking to meet more people, to not just rely on dating apps. Because if you're just on dating apps, all someone gets is a couple of photos of you and some prompts that maybe do or don't give a good depiction of who you are, and that's it. I think the best thing you can do if you're single and you're looking to go on more dates, regardless of your gender, is to put yourself out there in social situations that are in line with your values, hobbies, and interests, and talk to as many people as possible. Personally, I use this example a lot, but when I do not have a partially torn ACL, I love pickleball. So I will go to tons of pickleball social mixers and events, and I'll just talk to anyone, regardless of gender, because I meet a nice girl who has a friend whose guy friend is single, who is looking to be set up. Like, you just never know. So it's not about going to an event and saying, I'm going to meet as many single people as possible and give out my number. It's literally just, I'm going to socialize with people. I'm going to put it out there that I'm single, and I'm going to see what happens. A perfect example, the other day I met a friend of a friend, and they met at a networking event. And I was chatting with her, and instantly I was like, oh my God, I know a guy friend of mine who I'd love to set you up with. If you're single, I think you guys would get along so well. She's single, I set them up. That's why I think it's so important to just put out feelers, touch points, meet people, put yourself out there. Not even in the sense of, oh, I'm going to go to this event and meet the love of my life, but just, I'm going to connect with people and I'm going to see what happens. Also, if you don't know me, my name is Danny. I post dating and relationship advice and stories, and don't forget to follow me.
Okay. So there's some things I love about that, some things not a huge fan of. So the first thing is, like, I'm still a little bit confused about, can we get dating advice from, like, normal looking people at some point? Because, like, here's the problem. Here's my problem with dating advice on the internet. It's all, like, really attractive people, and I feel like they're playing a different game from the rest of us. And I kind of get what she's saying, because if, you know, I imagine if I saw her on a dating app, I may swipe right. But hearing her talk about some random story about how someone met at a networking event, I was like, this is boring. I'm done. Right? So it kind of goes both ways. So, and yet we just cited research that this person is correct. Right? So this is where, you know, like, yeah, let's get normal looking people dating advice. You know what I mean? But this person's not wrong, right? We just cited literature that shows that she is correct. So the first thing is that, like we talked about, there's a difference between organic interactions and, like, the selectivity of a dating app. The other thing about a dating app is that if you swipe left on someone, you just have another option, right? So this is why dating apps are so brutal, because it's like your number of options is infinite. So if you're not happy with this one, oh, how much effort does it take to get another option? Oh my God, it's just, you have to flick your finger. Got to flick it. Got to flick it. Sorry. I know it's a lot of work to move on to the next person, but you got to flick it. So if you're on a dating app, you're not competing against other guys or girls. You're not competing against other people. What you're actually competing against is whether someone likes you more than flicking. That's all you're competing against, right? So the option for the next thing to come around is very, very, very low, right? And people have talked about this. So the good thing about in-person interactions is it's not like I can walk up to you and be like, I'm tired of talking to you. And then poof, there's another human being. You're relatively stuck with my dumb ass for some amount of time until you can extract yourself. And this is like a completely different thing, right? So this is the way that human beings form relationships. It's far more organic. And this is where, like, a lot of people think, like, oh my God, I should go into this. And, like, I'm trying to talk to people and people say, you know, don't like, I don't even know what I'm saying anymore, chat. Jesus. Just had a brain fart. Gonna have my smoothie and just recollect for a second. All right. What the hell am I saying? Who knows? I'm working myself up just saying stupid things. And once again, huge respect to all the content creators who are making this content. But this person is right. Okay, so let's like go back over those principles. So one thing is that dating apps are very, very selective. And so if you're physically attractive, you'll do better there because those are primarily based on physical attractiveness, right? They're based on like the pictures more than anything else. Like, I mean, you can write whatever wall of text you want in your bio, but mainly it's pictures. That's what people make their selections based on. So when you reduce yourself to a picture, how well do you compete? And this is why like everyone's like, oh, like all the nice guys are like, all the assholes end up on dates. Like no one likes nice guys. And their perception is because they're basing things on dating apps where they see attractive people get lots of matches. It's like, yeah, like, I mean, if you measure quality by how good you are at playing mid in League of Legends or Dota 2, you're going to get a very significant slice of the population. If we replaced all pictures on dating apps with your rank in your game of choice, dating apps would select for a completely different thing. Dating apps select on pictures. And so if you are advantageous in pictures, then you will have an advantage. And if you are not advantageous on pictures, you will have a disadvantage. Ergo, this person's advice, which I think is good advice, which is put yourself out there. All right, keep your pants on. Go and create opportunities for people to get other kinds of information about you. Now, I don't know if y'all were here. Let's look at one other thing real quick. So we're going to look at another quick piece of data. This is really important. We already looked at this on Wednesday, but if y'all weren't here, we're going to pull this up because this is like a great study. Here it is. So this is a study about bald dudes, right? So let's take a quick look at like physical attractiveness. So the key thing is if we look at people who are bald, they get, so here's the non-bald target. So we're comparing pictures, we're comparing people who are not bald to people who are bald. And what we find is in physical attractiveness, people who are not bald are more attractive than people who are bald. And then what we also find is that bald people don't have pretty privilege. There's something called pretty privilege, which is that if you're attractive, physically attractive, people will think that you are more likable, more kind, more competent, more good, more intelligent. So we see this as well, that if you ask people questions about non-bald versus bald people, the non-bald people win. Except if you add something called individuating information. So we have stereotypes of people. And the cool thing is that when we judge someone based on their stereotype, it's just the stereotype. But when you add individual information, when you make someone more human instead of just a stereotype, then the non-bald people, the bald people actually come out on top in terms of how much would you like to spend time with this person? Do you think this person is cool? Not their physical attractiveness. They're still losing on physical attractiveness, but we do see a non-significant statistically, but we actually see a bump in their physical attractiveness too. You guys notice that? It's not statistically significant because the error bars overlap, but it's there. Or it could be an error, is what it means. But we absolutely see a big difference in do I like this person or not? Because there are actually stereotypes for attractive people too, which we oftentimes don't think about, right? Attractive people are playboys. Attractive people are assholes. Attractive people will dump me at the first sign of whatever. So it turns out that as you add individuating information, as you add personality to yourself, right, through interactions, people will actually judge you better. And the more physically unattractive you are, if we extrapolate this out, the more you have to gain by making yourself an individual. So this is the point of putting yourself out there. Understand the mechanisms at play. Because here's the problem with putting yourself out there. I say, hey guys, hey ladies, put yourself out there. And this person on TikTok, who I'm sure is quite competent and has her heart in the right place and offers good advice, is like, just put yourself out there. Just. Hate that word. And she's right. The problem is that until we understand what's the point of putting ourselves out there, it becomes very hard to do. Now, this is important to understand. See, our brain makes something called an action success calculation. So what it does is anytime it looks at a particular action, it has an idea of what the benefit will be, and it has an idea of what the cost will be. And if the benefit is worth the cost, we will stay motivated in doing it. The problem with all this advice to people who give us this idea of just put yourself out there is our brain does not know how to calculate the benefit of just putting yourself out there. So this is literally what your brain does. And y'all may have noticed this. Your brain will be like, how much do I put myself out there? How long do I put myself out there? What does putting myself out there mean? Does that mean that I have to go through one grueling single speed dating night or 15? What is the duration? What is the frequency? What is the intensity? And then what happens is as you put yourself out there, you don't have a good idea of any of those answers. And what happens is you pay a high cost because putting yourself out there is not easy. It's painful. So now what happens is our brain doesn't know what to expect when, and all it sees is a cost. And this is kind of like if I tell you like, hey man, give me some money and good things will happen to you. And you're like, okay, here's $100. When will the good things happen? I don't know. Give me more money. You're like, all right, here's another $100. And you're like, when do things turn around? Just give me more money. Just keep paying costs. I don't know when the benefit will happen. I don't know the intensity. I don't know the duration. All I know is that people who give me money tend to do better. Just have faith. Give me more money. Pay a higher cost. Pay a higher cost. Pay a higher cost. So a really good example of this is gardening. So if we look at gardening, got to till the soil, got to build this raised bed, got to order some seeds, got to put them in this thing, got to put them in that thing. Then I got to water them every day. And gardening, why do people garden? Because they know they have an expected gain. Hey, when this rolls around, I grew peas a couple years ago. Oh my God, it was amazing. The peas were so good. You can't find these in a grocery store. Fresh peas, so sweet. You have to know when the benefit will come in order to tolerate the cost. The problem with just put yourself out there is it doesn't give your brain any kind of idea of like, how much am I going to pay before this pays off? Becoming a doctor is the same. Going to med school is like you start when you're like 17. And then you finish when you're like 30. So for 13 years, paying a high cost, paying a high cost, paying a high cost, because you know that there's a payoff at the end. The problem with just put yourself out there is what's the payoff? When does it happen? Who the hell knows? You just got to keep trying, bro. Just keep trying. No, it doesn't work. Recognize this shortcoming in yourself. Recognize that putting yourself out there is not a solution to anything. It is, but in your mind, you can't think of it that way. Because if you think if I put myself out there, then things will happen. But if you expect things to happen, your brain will say, hey, it's not happening. Let's stop. And that's what happens with people who put themselves out there. They work up the courage for a couple of months, and then they put themselves out there. And then they get smacked. And then they retreat. And then the cycle repeats. See, when you're putting yourself out there as an avoidance of loneliness, this does not work. Some people will try to socialize because they are so lonely. And they think that loneliness is such a powerful negative motivator. But here's the key thing to understand. If you are motivated by your negative emotions, let's say my loneliness builds up. Now what's prompting me is negative emotion, right? That's what's forcing me to act. So as the loneliness builds up, I socialize. And then once I start socializing, the loneliness goes down and the social anxiety goes up. And what's dictating my actions is negative emotion. So loneliness over here, I end up socializing. As I socialize, social anxiety increases, loneliness goes down. And what am I being dictated by? My negative emotion. So now social anxiety is high. Whoop. Let's go back inside. This is painful. So you have to understand that putting yourself out there is a very high cost. It's like gardening. And there will be payoffs, right? What are the payoffs? It's that paper that I showed where more social interaction, you don't have to make things work with this person. This is very important to understand. There is a metaplasticity. Every time you socialize with someone, I don't care how painful it is, I don't care how bad your relationship is, you get better at the next one. That's what's cool. It's how our brain is designed. So by all means, put yourself out there, but recognize that it's going to suck for some amount of time. How long? I don't know. Practically, I'd say that people who consistently socialize for a period of 6 months will be in a significantly better place. This is Dr. K pulling a number out of my butt, but I'd say you will be 40% better in 6 months. Now, what's going to happen is an army of people is going to respond to me and be like, no, I've been doing this for 6 months. I'm not significantly better. We'll get to that one day where I'm making a video about it. Only 40%? You're damn right, only 40%. Now, let's understand why Dr. K is saying 40%. I'm definitely going to pick a number that's under 50. Why? Who can figure out why I won't say 50% or 60%? Even if I believe it. Why am I saying 40%? Hedging your bets. Won't try. Very good. The main thing is if I tell you you're going to be 75% better. 1 month in, you're like, I'm not on track for 75%. And you're going to quit. Low expectations, y'all. See, this is the problem. Is we all think, oh my God, I think so lowly of myself. You're damn right. You should. Don't expect a whole lot of yourself and you will be pleased. It's okay to be a loser. It's all right. You're not, I was about to say you don't deserve better. That's not true. Don't expect a whole lot and just do it anyway. Right? Set low expectations. And you have a chance to be impressed. You have a chance to be pleasantly surprised. But if you set high expectations, your mind will sabotage you. I was told, right? So unfortunately, this happens to me as a clinician, where I developed a little bit of a reputation, and boy, did that screw me and everyone else involved. So I had a patient once come into my office that said, hey, I heard you're the psychiatrist that people go to when all the other psychiatrists have failed. I was like, fuck. GG. Now the expectations are high. Now someone is expecting a miracle. And I was like, you must have the wrong person. Bye. Right? Doesn't work. So expect less. Okay? It's a good thing. Swipe left. Brilliant. Oh no, Dr. K has white hair. You're damn right. It's going to go white first and then it's going to start falling out, chat. Mark my words. It's going to happen to me too. Okay. Okay. Now we're getting to good questions. So Ken is asking, but shouldn't I believe that I deserve better? Having expectations because I value myself? No. I'm going to be straight with y'all. I don't think so. So, I mean, I say this, like, this is like maybe, you know, people will take issue with this, which is fair enough. So if y'all disagree with what I say and you think that it's incorrect, please criticize and let me know otherwise. So there's a lot of nuance to what I'm going to say. So a lot of people will think to themselves and they'll try to tell each other, you know, you deserve better. And I'll say that and I believe that at times. But being a medical doctor, like, I don't know where this idea of deserve comes from. Like, to be completely honest with y'all, I've seen amazing human beings who do not deserve to have brain tumors get brain tumors. Like, it's crazy. I've seen people who make bad mistake after bad mistake after bad mistake, will steal people's money, will inject using IV drugs, will inject so that they have an infection in their heart muscle because they're using dirty needles. They steal stuff. I've seen someone get electrocuted by lightning and survive all kinds of stuff and then end up using drugs to the point where they basically kill themselves. I don't know about deserving. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, sure, we can talk about karma and all that stuff, and I think all that stuff makes sense. But we have this idea that I deserve better. I don't know that you do. I say that to people. Now, we all have to be careful, okay? So when I make a statement like this, the temptation is going to be to assume I am saying additional things. But I don't know where we get this idea of what we deserve. I don't know. I'm genuinely, like, I don't get it. Like, I don't understand. I can't reconcile the things that I've seen as a medical professional with the concept of deserve. Because what I see in this world is that good things happen to people who make bad decisions, and bad things happen to people who make good decisions. I've seen people who eat super healthy, keto diet, vegan, fucking get brain tumors at the age of like 36 and have 4 months to live. Like, I don't know. And I've seen people who are abusive and find partners to abuse relationship after relationship after relationship. I don't know. So should you have expectations? Generally speaking, I think in life, the more you lower your expectations, the better off you will be. Now, there's one last point here, which this person says, I should value myself. No, that you should absolutely do. But valuing and deserving are two different things. You should absolutely value yourself. Absolutely understand that you have intrinsic value as a human being. And on some level, you absolutely deserve happiness. Completely agree. And I know I just said it. You shouldn't, I don't know about deserving. I recognize the contradiction. So please try to understand. I don't even know if I understand 100%, but I'm kind of working myself there. See, when you value yourself, I don't know that the world, because here's the thing. Deserve comes from the outside, right? Deserve is about what you get or what you should get. That's the thing. I don't know what the world owes you. But deserve and value are completely separate in my mind. And value and expectation are completely separate in my mind too. Do you have value? 100%. Do you have immense value? 100%. You should treat yourself that way. But you should also understand that the world may not see your value. And that's okay. And the whole point, like the way that you should live your life is if someone does not see your value, you can move on. Because people will say, I deserve better. I don't know that you do, but if you are not happy with what you are getting, then by all means move on. There's a nuance here which is very important. Doesn't mean be a doormat. Doesn't mean do what other people tell you to do. It doesn't mean stay in unhealthy relationships. It means recognize your intrinsic value and recognize that if this is not right for you, it's not right for you. You don't need to deserve better. That's the key thing. The action doesn't come out of a deserving. The action comes out of a value. The action comes out of a choice. The action comes out of rolling the dice. That's where I think you should operate from. I think generally speaking, human beings deserve happiness. All human beings deserve happiness. I believe it. But I think the world doesn't give a shit what I believe. Bluntly. And so how do we reconcile these two things? You just do the best that you can. Recognize that you have value. Recognize that your value is intrinsic. Recognize that your value is not determined by the number of left swipes you get on a dating app. See, when we don't see our internal value, we use external measures for our internal value. When I don't feel good about myself, I need to be at the top of the class. When I'm insecure about my appearance, I need to be the prettiest princess in the room. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the prettiest one of all? This is born of insecurity. Deserving doesn't enter into any of this. So focus on the internal. Focus on fixing the insecurity, not what you deserve. I do believe you deserve happiness, but I think that the key thing is that the happiness that you are entitled to in this life doesn't come from the world. This is the huge mistake that people make. It comes from in here. Because you can't expect something of the world. Like, I just don't know. I mean, maybe someone has an answer that I don't understand. I have answers too. I just don't I'm not going to go into them now about karma and things like that. I think it's a good explanation. But it's not, doesn't have utility here. Does that make sense? These are beautiful comments, by the way. I hope y'all are having fun. I'm having a blast. So, one thing that I just want to mention real quick is this idea of like what your intrinsic value is and understanding, your relationship with the world and stuff like this. See, the biggest problem that we have is that we oftentimes operate within ourselves. So if you really look at like your day-to-day life, like you're talking to your mind most of the time. Your mind is forming all these conclusions, and this becomes the world that you live in. So one of the things that this is where I really think group coaching is fantastic. So the whole reason, it's kind of weird because people don't really know what group coaching is. We have a difficult time explaining what it is. It has immense value. It's my favorite thing to do as a clinician and a coach. I love group work. We've had some streams where we sort of do some group stuff, and real transformation happens in group settings. And the beautiful thing about group is that, see, anytime I work with someone individually, there's this thought in the person's back of their mind that I'm paying you to be my cheerleader. But in a group of your peers, it's different. That's why there's data that shows that peer respect is worth more than even your boss's respect or superior respect. If you look at programmers, the respect that matters the most to programmers is the respect of their peers, not their superiors. So if you're stuck in your life and you need to look at your life from the outside, especially when it comes to relationships, because what happens in group is there's a certain set of rules that y'all follow. And the rules involve learning how to listen, learning how to talk, learning how to claim space in a conversation, learning how to give up space in a conversation. I don't know if that makes sense to y'all, but all of these things, I see people sort of saying, I don't know how to socialize. Right? So there's someone saying, I'm a woman trying to get into my first relationship. I hear so many guys online saying that women get it easy, but I've had no luck. I've done dating apps, socialized, and have even asked guys out. I don't even get the unwanted attention in real life or online that almost all women I know have said they've experienced. I guess I should be grateful for those things don't happen to me. Am I just ugly? What am I doing wrong? Should I lower my expectations or just end up being alone? This is what I'm talking about. I think that this is where in group work, y'all will interact with each other. People will get to know you. And this is very important. There's no dating in group, right? So the other beautiful thing about group, the problem with other social interactions is that there is a price. Y'all get what I mean? Every social interaction comes at a cost. There's some kind of association. There's some kind of respect. You can't be authentic with people because of what they'll think, because of what your boss thinks, because of what your girlfriend thinks, because this person may not ever date you, because this person may crap talk you behind your back, because this person is part of your friend circle, because this person is part of your D&D group. So you can never be authentic with someone. So you can't explore these issues objectively. So that's why we still do this group thing, even though personal coaching has been full for 2 years. And group is just beautiful. It's hard to describe what the value is. It's one of these things where you don't quite, it's like gardening. But a lot of this social stuff, this identity stuff, that's what people really work on. And if you guys watched our group streams that happened over a year ago, you'll see the change, right? It's about other people reflecting on you that someone can't do, a professional can't do for you. It has to be your peers. Right? They have to tell you, hey, I struggle in this way too, or whatever. And there's a trained facilitator, right? Someone who is a certified facilitator who knows how to bring this stuff out in the right way. And it works incredibly well. But what does it do? I don't know. Your mileage may vary. Your mileage 100% will vary. Different people get different things. That's the value of it. Is that it helps us grow in the dimensions that we are not necessarily aware that we need growth. Okay, let's move on. this one.
I've never been rejected asking a girl on a
Hold on. Let's go here.
I've never been rejected asking a girl on a date ever in my life. And it's not being sexy. It's called using psychology. What most guys do when asking is give off this vibe. Would you like to take my hand on a date? Please let me take you out. Bro, that's lame as f***. It's boring. Women are triggered by emotion, so you want her to feel something here. We want the idea of a date with us to seem exciting to her. So instead of that approach, more so say, hey, I'm doing blank on Saturday. You want to come with me? I was thinking of trying this new spot next week. Do you want to join me? See, this right here is an opportunity to experience something with you, not join you on a date. It's a small shift in words, big difference.
So, I have so many questions about this. This person says they've never been rejected. Small shift in words, and it's not because they're attractive. So this is where the scientist in me wonders. So when someone attributes something, they say it's not because I'm attractive, it's because of a small shift in words. How do you know that? Right? Because like this is where I think you got to have a trial. You got to have ugly people do the same thing. And if we take 50 attractive people and we take 50 ugly people and they use psychology, which aspect of psychology? What do you mean? Psychology. Psychology of what? What kind of psychology? It's psychology, bruh. Okay, fair enough. See, like this is where like I get so confused when I see this stuff because I'm like, what is this person basing this on? It's not because you're attractive, it's because of the way that I ask. So that means one of two things. One is that this person has gotten some kind of data where they have their ugly friend do the same thing, and clearly they have never been rejected as well, right? In order to make that statement, you have to have your control group and you have to have your experimental group. And then the second thing is that this person has said that they've never been rejected. So how do they know that asking someone out on a date and bringing that, will you take my hand on a date? How do they know that that's not effective? That's what I'm so confused about, right? Does that make sense? Because if they've never failed, did they try the other way and they failed a lot? So they had like a 0% success rate doing it the first rate and a 100% success rate doing it the other way? And then the other thing that I'm super curious about is like when this person asks, right? They're like, hey, I'm doing this at a certain time. Like, do you want to join me? What if the person says I'm busy? Does that count as a rejection? Or is no one busy when it comes to the random happenstance of what this person is doing? That's so interesting. So, well, I just get confused by this stuff. Like, I don't know when people make statements like this is where like I get confused. Like, I don't know what, like, you know what, I mean, it sounds good. By the way, I agree with this general sentiment. So I think like, you know, telling people like, hey, I have this interesting thing going on. Do you want to join me? Is it like, I'm all for inviting people to exciting things. I think that's good. But I also think that there's another step to this. So 2 or 3 things. So the first is I'm confused by their statistical analysis. Okay? I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying I'm confused about what data arrives at these conclusions. Because I am curious, like if ugly people tried this method, would it work? I think it would be better than asking people out on dates. But then there's 2 or 3 other things that I want y'all to seriously consider. The first is what's wrong with rejection? See, I think the right way to date is to be okay with rejection. I think some of the worst problems I see in relationships is when people are not okay with rejection. Because when you're not okay with rejection, you promise more than you can deliver. You bend over backward and accommodate more than you're willing to. More than you should, I should say. You set false expectations. You deceive. I think rejection is a very important part of dating. Not something that you should shy away from. In fact, I would even advocate that you offer yourself as you are. And instead of trying to convince someone that you are something that you are not, which is just going to end in disappointment, you just let people reject you. Now, people will say, like, I just can't do that because it hurts. Fair enough. It does hurt until you get used to it. Number one. And secondly, it only hurts as long as your value as a human being is tied to someone else's acceptance or rejection. Free yourself from the value of others. If someone wants to reject me, so be it. This is what I'm offering. So a couple years ago, I applied to be chief resident in my residency. And chief resident is a prestigious position. And furthermore, at Massachusetts General Hospital and the Harvard Medical School. It's like man's greatest hospital. That's what they call MGH. And it's very competitive. So you take like the most competitive kids on the planet, you stick them in one place, and then you create a position that is like the leader. It's like class president kind of thing. And so I applied for this thing, and for a little while I was caught up in it. I was like, I want to be chief because everybody else wanted to be chief. I didn't end up becoming chief. It was fantastic. Worked out great. But at some point, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. So during my interview, I just said, hey, if I'm chief, this is what I'm going to do. If y'all want this, pick me. If you're not interested in this, pick somebody else. Love it. I love that attitude. It's the attitude that I've taken that's gotten me here. Here's what I have to give. If you're interested, take it. If not, totally fine. My value does not depend on your approval. Does not depend upon this laurel or even you going out with me on a date. This is what y'all should achieve. The big paradox is that when you achieve this, you will become more attractive. People will be more interested in you. Right? That's kind of like, it's how it works. So I don't think that the goal should be avoidance of rejection. I think the goal should be independence of rejection. Because this is the crazy thing. People can reject you for all kinds of reasons. You don't need to get caught like, what the fuck? You just think about it for a second. There are 1,000 reasons people could reject you, and you're going to tie your self-worth up to the reasons that someone else has, including they're dating someone, including they're not attracted to your gender, including they're asexual, including they don't like your haircut, including they are quite materialistic and you don't meet the material standards that they have. You're going to let your self-worth be tied to these things? Now, it's easy for me to say you're going to do that because it's not like we're taught anything else. And if we look at the neuroscience and psychology of social rejection, it correlates with a drop in our self-esteem. This happens during puberty, especially. So the more hormonally active you are, the more sensitive you will become to social rejection. So this is not, what I'm saying is not easy, but it's worth it. Right? And then people will ask, how do I have a value that is independent of other people? Short answer is spend time with yourself. So the biggest thing that I gained in India was time with myself, time away from everyone's judgment. And when the mind is constantly receiving judgment, the mind will become sensitive to judgment. Right? If I drink alcohol every day, I will become dependent on alcohol. When I'm a celebrity and people are constantly talking about my weight and snapping pictures of me and judging me based on my appearance, a celebrity isn't weak for being very concerned about their appearance. Paparazzi will drive people to the point of body dysmorphia. This isn't a weakness. This is a natural consequence. So the way to get around it is to spend time with yourself. So I went hiking when I was about 19 years old. And I was hiking by myself. And I saw a 10-foot boulder. And I was like, I'm going to climb that thing. And I failed. And then I came back a month later and I was like, I'm going to climb that thing. And I failed again. Came back a third time. I was able to climb it. And I felt great. And no one was watching. And no one knew. The whole problem in our world is that we celebrate our wins. We show everyone else, which reinforces the idea that other people's approval correlates with my happiness and my self-worth. Here we are talking about paparazzi and body dysmorphia, but we also have circle jerk award ceremonies, right? Where we elevate some people above others based on some particular outcome. Same thing, all leads to ego. So value in the self comes by spending time with yourself. Value in the self comes from earning your own respect. That's what you should be focused on. Earn your own respect. When you look at yourself and you say, I'm pathetic because of A, B, and C, that's what you should fix. Forget about everybody else. There are so many things in your life which you want to improve because you want to improve them, then do it. That is where respect comes from. And once you start respecting yourself, first of all, it's a real tragedy, but other people will respect you too. But the most important thing is that you will not become dependent on other people's respect. So there are some people out there who are so toxic, but their toxicity is something very different from what we think of as toxicity. One of the most toxic characteristics in a relationship is variable respect, variable approval. One of the most psychologically damaging things that you can do to a child. And we see this so much with Asian kids. Their parents are like this. If you get an A+, I like you. If you get an A, I don't like you. If this other kid does better than you, I don't like you. If you do better than this other kid, I like you. And the crazy thing is, it isn't the standards. It's the variable respect. And if you look at the most addictive relationships, these are the ones where your partner treats you really well on one day and then treats you really poorly the next day. If we look at abusive relationships, people will wonder, why on earth would this person stay in this relationship? It's because some people, abusers, have figured out that you treat people well on one day and you treat them like crap on another day. The whole gaming industry has figured this out with microtransactions and loot boxes. This is a random reinforcement schedule of affection, of love, of approval, and it addicts the shit out of people. And it teaches people that your value as a human being is dependent on some external factor. And then people get so genuinely confused because they're like, I don't understand how you can have intrinsic value. What does that mean? Yeah, it's confusing. And I don't blame them. It's because they've just never had this idea. Like they've never had consistency of approval, consistency of respect, respect despite circumstances. And I learned this from my mentors, and you learned it in psychiatry because you see people at their highs and you see people at their lows, especially with addictions. And the whole point is like, they're the same people. They're good people, whether they do good things or they do bad things. I don't think that it changes the goodness of a person. I think there's bad actions. You can harm people and you can do things that are wrong. I don't know that it fundamentally changes your value as a person. I think there's about 1% of the population that's genuinely bad people. Those people exist too. But it's like exceedingly rare. And even the bad people can do good things. Worked with them. It's very interesting. Love it. Very exciting professionally. Very satisfying professionally. Does this make sense? But don't they both go together, self-respect and social? If you're screwed, they go together. That's the whole point, is that you're absolutely right. The way that our brain is wired, and it's important to understand this. So let's understand the neuroscience. So if we look at theory of mind, super cool. So at the very beginning, we have a young child. And a young child doesn't understand that other people exist. So they don't understand that like other people, like everything's just senses, like sensory inputs, right? So there's no difference between like a rock and a human. There's just two objects out in the world. It's not like there's a conscious being and a non-conscious being because their poor little brains are developed. This is why peekaboo is the most lit game in the universe. Because if I go like this, peekaboo, when you can't see me, I cease to exist. So babies love peekaboo because they're like, what the is this? This person is winking in and out of existence. They don't have object permanence. They don't have theory of mind. And it's like, oh my God, the world is a magical place. This person used to be there. They're gone. Oh no, my dad or mom disappeared. They've ceased. They winked out of existence. And now they're back. Woo-hoo. It's very, very scary. And then they learn that mommy or daddy always comes back. And they're like, okay, we're playing this game again. Let's go. It's like a mini roller coaster for a baby. It's like fear. Here's the drop. Oh my God, are they actually gone? Are they actually gone? And then you learn as a parent, you learn how to play peekaboo. You learn that you don't go peekaboo in 2 seconds right away. Then you go a little bit longer, a little bit longer, a little bit longer. And they're like, it's like they're the roller coasters going up, 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 up. And the kid's like, and then you appear and they're like, yes. This is what happens with peekaboo. They have no theory of mind. Then they develop a theory of mind. They start to understand, okay, this person exists. This is also why psychological trauma during that time, abuse during that time is very psychologically damaging. Okay? I have an allergy to this. What are we talking about? Okay, this is probably the old thing. Okay. Because if no one else exists in the world, any pain that you experience is your fault. So someone does something bad to you, you don't understand that there are other conscious beings that are capable of exerting malice towards you. So you blame yourself for everything. Okay, that's another piece, consequence of no theory of mind. Then we develop theory of mind. We're like, okay, there's people out there. And then when we're like 8 or 9, like we recognize that people out there we don't have the depth of their mental experience. So we're like, I like this person likes me, but we don't really have a whole lot of like color or character to the way that they think. So if I were to ask you as a grown adult, how do you think this person feels? You can hypothesize all kinds of stuff. You can empathize about their work situation, about dating, whatever. But when you're a kid, you don't really know that. They're like, they're cool people or they're not cool people. Then puberty comes along. And hormones activate. And hormones go to your brain. And now, in addition to developing primary and secondary sexual characteristics, our brain also has to learn how to like get into the mating game, right? It's not just about the physical changes, voice changes, shaving, all that kind of stuff. It's also the brain. So the brain develops persistent ideas of other people. Other people become these whole complex human beings. And the most important thing that changes is our brain learns how our actions influence the opinions of others. This is why peer pressure is so big during adolescence, because what I do shapes someone's opinion of me. This fundamental fact happens in puberty. This capability, this awareness that other people will change the way that they treat me based on how I act happens in puberty. So when this happens, our self-esteem gets tied to other people. Now, whether I am treated well or not makes me feel good about myself or not good about myself. So if I am class president, I feel better. If I'm popular, I feel more confident. So my self-worth ties to the self-worth of the people around me. This is evolutionary. This is biological. Now, what happens in our human cognitive development is then we go through other stages. So hopefully, it used to be this way. In our 20s, at some point, we have to start living our own life. So we decide, I'm not just going to do what peer pressure determines. I've figured out that I want certain things in life, and I'm going to gravitate towards those. And then in our 30s and our 40s roll around, and then mid-40s roll around, and then we look back at the choices that we made. And we say, when I started the process of self-determination, instead of caving into everybody else, at this point in my life, was it the right choice or the wrong choice? And that's why we have midlife crises, because for some people, it's the wrong choice. Or some people did cave to what other people want, and they look back in their mid-40s and they said, I've lived my life for the benefit of others, and now I regret it. Hence, midlife crisis. I'm going to dye my hair. I'm going to buy a sports car. If I get divorced, I'm going to start dating someone younger. This is what happens. Human development. Puberty. Hormonal effects on socialization. Ericksonian stages, if y'all want references. So you're right that self-respect comes from the respect of others. And even at its origin, if we look at the theories of secure attachment, a child's self-respect and confidence will come from an unwavering respect and support from their parents, not the loot box. You get the prize whether you do a good job or a bad job. This is what solid parenting gives people, is a self-respect. So even if you look at the roots of it, even your own self-respect comes from other people. And this doesn't mean that it has to, but that's where it usually comes from. Thankfully, it doesn't have to come from that. So we know from studies of spiritual traditions, my own experience, what I've helped people do, that it doesn't have to come that way. That's the easiest way. It's the default. But thankfully, as human beings, we don't have to do what we're defaulting to. Right, the whole point of being human, what really separates humans from animals, is that I think we're the living organism that can most easily go against our nature. Now, you can make arguments that we never do that, but I don't personally agree with that. That's not the way I see the world. I think there's good scientific evidence that my view is incorrect, but that's just how I choose to see the world. The cool thing about being human is you're not destined by your biology. Right? We do things like we're altruistic, and you can make an argument for that being biological, which is a good one, by the way. I'm not saying that argument is wrong. So self-respect does oftentimes come from other people. That's the default, but it doesn't have to. And once you respect yourself, then you will become impervious to the lack of respect of other people. And then you're Gucci, because then you feel good. You feel content and tranquil. Okay. All right. Let's do one more. Nope.
Woman before sleeping with a guy. And it's the perfect filter. I would wait 6 dates if I were a woman before sleeping with a guy. And it's the perfect filter. Anyone who's made it past 6 dates, he's in it for the long run. It's easy to get super excited and think something's going well and you're untouchable, but always pull back a little. And
when you're with somebody you're really interested in versus just kind of, how do you feel like your approach is different?
My game is a million times better if I'm not interested.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. You get nervous, you get self-conscious, you lose self-confidence.
The moment you start caring about the thing.
Oh, yeah. Not that my game is very good to start out with, but once you're into a girl, it's free fall.
That's the reason why sometimes I think I might be single forever. I'm just going to mess it up.
All right. So I think there's some good stuff here and some stuff that I disagree with. So, does being into a girl or guy, is that a mistake? So this guy says, my game is way better when I'm not into someone. So I think that makes a lot of sense for a lot of people. So when when we're into someone, we have a lot of emotions, we make mistakes. We're less in control of ourselves. We're more emotionally sloppy, right? We'll text more than we should. We'll call more, we'll be a little bit clingier, maybe we'll cry. All kinds of stuff will change. So I think this is a common experience for a lot of people, but I don't buy it. I don't think that's the way to do things. So, chat, I hate to break this to y'all, but I'm kind of a hopeless romantic. I believe in love. I believe in true love. I believe in all this kind of stuff. I think it's idiotic to believe, but I believe it. I believe in lover. I'm love. I mean, I should say I believe in love. I'm a lover, not a fighter. So here's a couple of things to understand. So I think one of the most attractive things for someone is for someone to be hopelessly in love with you. Now that can be very scary, or it can be really amazing. So that's the thing, right? Sometimes it scares people. But like, oh my God, it's very intoxicating to be on the receiving end, provided you're not creeped out by them. So the biggest mistake here is that when we fall in love with someone and when we're totally into someone, we are not good at managing our emotions, which is why men have this problem more. That at least I see. Maybe it's not even true. Actually, it's probably not true. I see men talk about this problem more. And maybe that's because of my social algorithm. But, so dudes will say like, bruh, like, tug one out before you go on a date. Right? You'll think clear. Like, don't be that into her. Like, you can't be that into her. Otherwise, she'll take advantage of you. That kind of stuff happens, right? So there's a lot of reasons to be careful about being too into someone. But in my heart of hearts, I think it's love. Like, you should go for it. And I think it's incredibly intoxicating for the other person when you're like totally into them, provided that you're not creepy about it. So I think the biggest problem here is that men especially are not trained to be at peace with their emotions. So in the same way that, I don't think anger is a bad thing, but we should be in control of our anger should not be in control of us. Anxiety is not a bad thing. We should be in control of our anxiety should not be in control of us. And love is not a bad thing. We should be in control of love. Love should not be in control of us. And I believe that. And also, I don't. Because I think sometimes the nature of love is that you lose control. And there's something very, very endearing about someone who tries to maintain control and just can't. So a lot of dudes are worried about premature ejaculation. So the interesting thing is a psychiatrist. I know that came out of left field. So as a psychiatrist, I work with a lot of women. And so sometimes I'll ask them, we'll talk about their sex lives because that's a normal part of our psychotherapy. And I'll ask them, like, what do they think, and so there's a lot of stuff about sexual satisfaction. But the interesting thing that I was surprised by is the majority of women that I worked with, and maybe this is a sample size issue, are actually like not that, premature ejaculation, not the worst thing in the world. So I think sexual satisfaction is important in a relationship. But one of the most, how can I say this, complementary things that a woman can experience based on what they've told me, okay, is for someone to ejaculate very quickly because they are just so into this woman and they can't hold back and they're like so aroused by her body and by her soul that they can't hold back. They're so in love. And like, I think sexual satisfaction is important. So you can't end there. That's the main thing. It's the premature ejaculation is not the problem. I mean, 70% of women can't even orgasm from penetrative intercourse. It's like you're going to need something else anyway. I think that's the main thing. Okay? So this is the thing. Like, I get that people are paranoid about falling in love and like, but I think you should get a little bit more comfortable with it, right? Learn to be with it. Learn to let it out a little bit, lose control a little bit, but like, don't go crazy. And so, yeah, I see that women in the chat, the women in chat are like agreeing with me. So that's reassuring. So maybe it's not just, my patients, but, yeah. So like, if y'all pay attention to chat, you'll see that, people are saying this. And that's the thing is like, we as men, like the crazy thing about like us dudes is when we're like trying to understand what women want, we don't fucking talk to women. We just like, I don't know, like, I don't know why it's a bunch of dudes like telling each other like what works in sex. It's like, that's weird. Do y'all get that? Like, does everyone stop and think about like, this is the way that like you be attractive? And it's like, I wonder if some of these people are secretly gay and into dudes. Like, that's just what they want. Like, I honestly wonder that sometimes. Because here they are talking about love and what it takes to get people to fall in love with you and like what's attractive in a man. They're like, here's how to be an attractive man. It's like, how the fuck do you know? Because that's what you find attractive. I really wonder about that sometimes. It's like, here's how to be an attractive. Like, what? Ask women. And there's a study I saw recently where men are very poor judges of what women are attracted to. You know, it's like isn't it weird, chat? Like, have you guys ever thought about this? That it's like, it's kind of weird. Like, shouldn't we be getting advice as dudes from women instead of other men? And shouldn't women get advice from dudes instead of other women? And like, anyway. Someone's saying women lie. So, I mean, so do men. Right? I don't think deception is gender specific. Yeah, but women don't agree between each other. Neither do dudes. This is so weird. Someone's saying deception is a feminine trait. I'm so curious where that kind of thinking comes from. Like deception starts in all babies. Like 2-year-olds are where deception starts. I'd say deception is a human trait. Okay, so someone's saying, I prioritized women's advice my whole life. I'm single at 57. Thanks for sharing. Right? So maybe that's a problem, right? Like I'm honestly, I'm very glad you shared. Because, like, you know, so maybe what I'm thinking is wrong. Yeah. I'm not the arbiter of truth here. And if people have contrary experiences to my perceptions, like, we should highlight those too, right? So we got to figure out what's going on there. And other people are saying, like, women give bad advice and so do men. Maybe that's good too. Okay. Best advice to get is from old married men. Okay. All right. Let's take a look at one more, and then I think we are... Okay, let's do this one. This looks like a good one. By the way, I'm really enjoying today, so thank you all very much for, you know, doing this. Like, I love the chat interaction. I love what y'all are saying. Like, the energy in both directions. Like, when y'all agree and when y'all disagree, like, both directions is fantastic. Okay. This has been great. Hopefully this has been helpful to y'all. That's what we're here for. Oh.
I like you.
I like you too.
How much?
This much?
Oh.
Why?
I like you this much.
There's an imbalance.
What do you see when you see me?
A relationship?
Oh.
What do you see?
Fun dates?
Yeah, no, I'm cool with that.
Are you?
Not really, but I'll pretend.
But you're gonna develop feelings that aren't substantiated by anything tangible.
I'll just keep hoping you'll change your mind.
Fully knowing that I won't.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's delusional.
Yes.
You're gonna get hurt.
I'm aware.
Why would you put yourself through that?
Well, I'd rather have some of you than none.
I feel like I should end this before it gets to that point.
Why?
Well, the longer we see each other, the harder the blow will be on you.
So end it.
I won't.
Why?
Because I'm getting everything I want at your expense. You end it.
I won't.
Why?
Because I lack the self-respect to walk away.
What's another situation, Chip?
Maybe we should look for people that actually want the same thing we do.
We probably should, but...
This, I think, is the best one. I think that's a great... I think it's great. That's fantastic. right? Yeah, can I link it? I think it's a very good representation of the psychological drivers that happen. I have nothing, chat. I have nothing to add. I think they did a good job. I think the hopeless romantic in me says that sometimes things do work out. So I guess that's the one thing that I would add, is that oftentimes it ends poorly, but I've seen it end well. So I've had friends who end up in long-term relationships that did not start out that way, where one person liked the other person more. I think my relationship was probably like that, honestly. I think. But I think it's good. I think I linked the video, didn't I? Here's the video. I thought it was a very good characterization, no? I think, the one thing I would say is I don't think it's necessarily delusional, right? So I think that there's... So the one thing that I would say is kind of like, I think it's a beautiful representation of a lot of people's experiences, but I do think that people's feelings change. So oftentimes they don't, at least in the direction that you want, but I think sometimes they do. Like, I think it's many people that I have worked with have had an imbalance of how much one person is into the other person. And I think over time, people can start to recognize things in another human being that they did not value at the very beginning. So I know everyone's saying, don't give me hope, but like, I'm not saying it's common, but I have seen it I've seen it a lot, right? But those are in the relationships that end up well. So that there's a sample size issue there where like, I'm seeing the ones that ended up well, right? So when people come to me, they don't talk to me about their the fourth relationship they had before their current one that ended up because of this, ended because of this dynamic. But I know it's bad, but I think like, don't lose hope, chat. Like, I'm serious. Like, I mean, I think it's healthier if you do, but nah. I believe in love. I think like, I've seen it, I think it's tough, but yeah, I mean, I don't know what y'all want me to say. Like, let's, so here's the thing. Is it a bad strategy? Yeah. Does it sometimes work? Yeah. I mean, if you play games on the internet, that's true. You know that good strategies don't have to win, and bad strategies can win. This is not good for your psyche. Like, I don't know, dude. Like what? So here's what I would say. So if we're talking about like, okay, like I'm thinking through this as I'm seeing y'all's comments, and it's really helpful, by the way. So how to approach this in a healthy way. So I think it's reasonable to enter into something of a relationship where people are looking for different things and there's enough common ground. See, I think half the problem that we have with dating right now is everyone is looking for a perfect match from the get-go. And situationships, I think, are a really good example of this, where one person's kind of into you, and like, I think it's very well said that like, I'll take what I can get. And even though the other person knows it's hurtful, it's like, I'm getting what I want. And so, like, it's kind of like one person's in pain now, one person is going to be inflicting pain later, which they don't want to do. I think it's a very good, accurate representation. But I do think that human beings change their mind, right? People can grow into love and they can grow out of love. Now, people are saying, don't give me hopium, right? So like, this is terrible for my psyche because now I'm going to pursue women. And that's where I would like, I'm like one of those, it's better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all. And maybe I'll change my mind one day. Maybe, God forbid, I'll go through a divorce or something like that, and I'll be like, fuck, I did it wrong for 20 years. I was deluded. I was blue-pilled. I was such a beta cuck, whatever. Maybe I'll wake up one day and I'll say that. Right? Who knows? Maybe I'll have the wool pulled off of my eyes and I'll see the world for what it is and I'll take the red pill and all that kind of stuff. Could happen. But I think that, like, I don't know. I mean, it just if you look at just the psychology of human beings' affection for each other changes over time. That's a fact. And so you should understand that. And I don't think you should deprive yourself of the opportunity of something. Just think about it for a second, right? If you say, unless this person is as into me as I am into them, I'm not going to date them from the get-go. Just think about how much you're narrowing your possibilities. That means that the only option is that you're head over heels in love with someone who's head over heels in love with you. And like, it's great when that happens, but oftentimes those relationships end up in train wrecks. That is something I feel very confident about. And how do I know this? Because I've worked at rehabs for about 2 years. Rehab is a terrible place to fall in love, and people do it all the time. And boy, do they fall in love. And they fall in love hard. They fall in love mutually. It's a mess. And like, just because two people fall in love, like, that doesn't mean that the relationship is going to end well. So it's like, let's think through our options. Option number one, we have the same amount of love for each other. Okay, well, like, that means either we're both head over heels in love, which like sometimes ends up in like 2-week marriages that fall apart within a few weeks because honeymoon phase is over and we begin to see each other for who we really are. Love can't make a relationship work forever. It's not sufficient. You need more than that. Option number two is like the two of us are just lukewarm. Okay, fair enough. And if we're kind of lukewarm, like, are we assuming that things are going to be the same or are things going to be different? Okay, no, if things are the same, that's a shitty relationship, right? It's kind of lukewarm. Not the best, not the worst. Maybe it's not shitty. And then the third thing is we're not that into each other. And so like that we don't want. So even in the lukewarm relationship, are we assuming that people can change? Okay, so if we're assuming that people can change and one person is head over heels in love, the other person is kind of lukewarm, like, that can change. So I think the way to approach this in a healthy manner is to give it a shot. And I think the problem is not in hoping. It's, first of all, recognizing that as I enter this relationship, there is pain in my future. Eyes wide open. I think the mistake that people make is that it's not that they hope. It's that they don't balance hope with the possibility that things may not work out well. So I think the healthy thing to do is to enter these situationships, if you have feelings for someone, and say, I'm going to give it some amount of time. Let's see if things change. I think it's important to be transparent about that too. Right? And say, like, I'll take what I can get now. I'm hoping you change your mind, and I'm comfortable seeing where things go. And then if things don't work out, then I think you should leave. Now, how long? I don't know, maybe 6 months, maybe a year. That's what my gut tells me, but I have no data to back that up. But I think that people, I mean, there's some studies about this. I haven't seen any consistent data about the rate at which men and women fall in love is variable. There's even like some weird, studies that I don't put a whole lot of stock into. I think they're low quality research that show that, there's weird things that happen. Like, dudes who become dads will be more attractive to like some women, including their wives. So it's weird. And I don't know if that's just women trying to make dudes with dad bods feel good about themselves, but I've seen some data to support that. So like what the nature of attractiveness changes. There may be some kind of biological basis to that, to where like, if you see someone who is a good parent, some weird evolution thing is like, okay, like we should mate with this person. But I'm hesitant to cite that kind of literature because I don't think it's nearly as deterministic. Everyone's like, women are like this. I mean, there's all kinds of evolution and all kinds of biology that can be true, but we also know that human beings are highly variable and have some degree of free will. So it's not deterministic. But if you study like 10,000 women, you'll detect some kinds of signals like that. And for that matter, men will change their attractiveness too, or men will change what they're attracted to. So I think like don't give up right away is my instinct. But I think you should also understand that it doesn't necessarily mean that things are going to go well. So I think eyes wide open, give it a shot, and then be comfortable walking away. Don't advise people to go for unbalanced relationships. Self-respect is so important. Yeah, so I think self-respect is a very important part of that. So I think an unbalanced relationship with self-respect can end well. Give this person time to see if, because not everyone falls in love at the same rate. But I completely agree that if you lack self-respect and you're in an unbalanced relationship, that is where abuse comes from. That is how you become a doormat. It's hard to control your emotion, though, especially love. I completely agree, right? So that's where we've got to ask a question, y'all. So how do you want to live your life? Is a life of restraint and control at all points the kind of way that we want to live life? Or do we sometimes want to let go? Are we okay sometimes making mistakes? Are we living life to the fullest, including the good and the bad? Right? So that's a decision you have to make. Right, so I tend to default to, or my conclusion at this point in life is like, it's not so much about controlling your love or not controlling your love. I think that's important. I think it should be tempered. But I think it's like go into things with eyes wide open, accept that suffering is a part of life. And anytime you fall in love, you're signing up for the potential of heartbreak. That's the reality. Right? Anytime you purchase a loot box, it could have something good and it could have something bad. It's your choice whether you want to play or not. But I don't think that the avoidance of potential hurt is a way to live a fulfilling life. And what we know from studies on video game addiction is that it is the denial of the reward that makes the thing so satisfying. The random reinforcement schedule is more satisfying. It's the chance that when it goes in your favor is what really people love. It's the long shot. It's what we memorialize in our mythology, in our stories. So I'd say live life without avoiding, don't be stupid, but I don't think that the avoidance of regret at every choice is how we come to a life worth living. Speaking from experience, living in constant restraint is hell. Yeah, I can imagine. How do I know if I have enough self-respect that I can even start healthy relationships? So we have a segment that we're going to be doing in mid-May on self-discovery on the membership side, but that is a great question. I will think about that. So I think that the real problem with this idea of if I have enough self-respect to start a healthy relationship is that we also know from psychology of attachment theory in relationships is that a healthy relationship can improve your self-respect. So I think the real tricky thing is that we tend to think that I have to do A before B before C, but in real life, oftentimes it's the other way around. And I recognize that that's like challenging, right? Because if you don't have enough self-respect, you may open yourself up to an abusive relationship. Absolutely true. Which implies that you should work on your self-respect first and then enter a relationship. But we also have data that shows that a supportive, caring partner can help you form self-respect. I know it's certainly the case for me. So I think the issue is not so much that one needs to come before the other, but that you should focus on both simultaneously. Don't let one be a substitute for the other. Right? So go to therapy, and if you feel like you want to, give dating a shot. I think that's the right answer. How to accept being a loser? Don't we have that already? Okay. We're at time for today. But this has been fantastic. This has been great. Y'all have been awesome. Dr. K ignoring all the stats on men and women's differences. What does that mean? Which stats are you talking about? I'm ignoring a lot of statistics. I can't cite everything all the time. But if there's something in particular that I'm missing... Oh, do you have anything about relationships involving someone with bipolar disorder? Let me see. Oh, bipolar disorder in relationships is tough. Let me see. I mean, we have stuff on BPD. I mean, BPAD. But I don't know if we have relationship-specific stuff. But you know, if y'all think I'm ignoring some kinds of statistics, or there's like pieces that I'm not citing everything all the time. There's like hundreds and hundreds of papers about the, I mean, on the literature is like thousands and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of papers. But if there's something in particular that y'all think I'm leaving out, it's not my intention to be obfuscational. We had something about borderline personality disorder in relationships, but not bipolar disorder. How do you know if your partner has bipolar versus BPD? You don't. Their doctor does. That's the whole point of a doctor. I'm going on a second date tomorrow, and recently I put on a substantial amount of weight. Do you have any advice for how I can get myself to feel less self-conscious about it? So I think that the best way to deal with that is just to acknowledge that I'm going to be self-conscious, right? That this is something that's changed, and own it. And then do your best to have a good time. But I think that, like, if you're self-conscious about it, like, I don't think that that's going to change. You can't fight against it. Just own it, acknowledge, and say, this is bad, and this is something I'm not happy with. And I think if you're going tomorrow, I would even say, I guess here's a piece of concrete advice. Do something between now and tomorrow that moves you in the right direction. So you don't have to lose all the weight if you've put on weight, but like eat healthy or exercise at least once. Move in the right direction at least one step. That will help some. Okay? All right, y'all. Thank you very much. Take care, everybody. Thanks for coming. We're doing Mental Health May. I think we've got streams and stuff a lot more this month. I'll be traveling for a couple of days. And then I think we've got an interview with Destiny on Thursday, and then a deep dive into CPTSD on Friday. So we'll see y'all next week, chat. Take care.